Peace, peace. This your host, Selah Shalom, and this is the Cosmon Teachings in the words of Jehovah and his angel ambassadors. Now, this is a rebuttal to the Ethiopian World Network concerning the Oahspe being an occultist book or a demonic book, which I will clear up, being that this guy has no knowledge of Oahspe. The first thing to address is that it's pronounced Oahspe, and the name Oahspe signifies and means sky, earth, and spirit. O equals sky, Ah equal earth, and Spe equals spirit, which stems from the first language called the Pan language, a language of signs and symbols, the first language spoken on this planet, stemming from the continent of Pan, which was located in the Pacific Ocean. Some call it Mu, some call it Lemuria. Oahspe contains a brief reference on history of the continent of Pan, while the Bible makes no mention of it. The next thing is that website was a poor reference website to go to cite up Oahspe. Go to the actual book instead of reading somebody's poor correlation with Rastafari and Oahspe, who has no knowledge of what they're talking about. Now, you stated in your introduction, give us the teachings of His Majesty, Rastafari, and His Imperial Majesty's Gospel, the Amharic Bible, not Oahspe cult. His Majesty warned us. First, being that this guy has no knowledge of Oahspe, I'm going to use Oahspe to prove my point. Now first, in the Book of Inspiration, chapter 11, verse 1 through 7, it states, "Seek not to spread my gospel, and entice followers unto this or that, saith Jehovah." Verse 2, "Neither go about preaching, saying, Thus saith Jehovah." Verse 3, "Let all men hear me in their own way." Verse 4, "No man shall follow another." Verse 5, "I will have no sect." Verse 6, "I will have no creed." Verse 7, "I am not exclusive, but I am with all my living creatures." Now that verse just killed his argument that this book is an occultist book or some demonic book. Jehovah declared he will have no sect, no followers of this or that. So we can cross out the idea that this is an occultist book. And the word occult just means hidden or hidden knowledge. Anything hidden eventually comes to light. Next, he states that Oahspe has nothing to do with Rastafari.
All right, but look at this article right here. Oahspe and Rastafarianism. What? Anyway.
Which is true. It has nothing to do with no one's individual culture. It is a universal way of life bound to no specific group, race, or ethnic background. Oahspe contains the history of many things the Bible doesn't even touch on, such as the submerged continent of Pan or Lemuria or Mu, the history of Brahma of India, the history of the prophet Iwata of North Gautama or North America. The Bible doesn't even mention these prophets, and many other things that the Oahspe speaks on that the Bible doesn't even touch on. Now, 6 minutes in the video, he talks about the guy, Nubro, who Oahspe was revealed through. Now, with that answer he gave, I know he had never read the biography of Nubro on how Oahspe came about. Now, here's what he says.
They're trying to link Oahspe, right, Oahspe, whatever, right, which is a book, right, written in 1880 by an American dentist. We showed you his pic in the last vid, right? Basically, some white man, some European, right, some European who had a walk-in experience, right? He claimed that it was the result of automatic writing. That means when you allow your body to be taken over by spirits, right? Demonic entities, basically, right? The prophets didn't do automatic writing, but these people, they be lying, right? Dictated to him by spirits in a trance. In this trance, he...
Now, as far as channeling, it is an ancient practice, no different than a medium or an oracle. The difference with channeling is that it is written instead of spoken orally. So ain't nothing new under the sun. Even the prophets were inspired by the spirit to write. So this would be a form of channeling, because the root of channeling is receiving information from the spirit world, whether through automatic writing, whether through the oracle, whether through the medium, or whether through channeling. The root cause is still the same. What this guy fails to realize is that with channeling, there is like everything else, good and bad. Being that he lacks the knowledge of Oahspe, he guesses that these were demonic spirits, but that's where he is wrong. If he had read the biography of Nubro or had any knowledge of Oahspe, he would know that this is not the case. Oahspe completely exposes demonic spirits and fallen angels, and the four heads of the beast is mentioned in Oahspe. In Oahspe 1, verses 12 and 13, it states, verse 12, and the names of the heads of the beast were Brahma, Buddhist, Christian, and Muhammadism, which is Islam. And they divided the earth and apportioned it between themselves, choosing soldiers and standing armies for the maintenance of their earthly aggrandizement. Verse 13. And the Brahmins had 7 million soldiers, the Buddhists 20 million, the Christians 7 million, and the Muhammadans, or Islam, 2 million, whose trade was killing man, and man in service of the beast gave 1/6 of his life and his labor towards war and standing armies, and 1/3 of his life he gave to dissipation and drunkenness, and this was the 6th era. So here it states the four heads of the beast, and that Christianity is one of the heads of the beast, and Christianity is one of the heads of the beast religion. And a lot of Rastafari deal with the Christian philosophy and believe in the false Trinity philosophy, even as going far as creating their own Trinity, making Selassie, Marcus Garvey, and Emmanuel the Trinity. And we know Jehovah in Oahspe, and even in the Bible, warned us of following such beliefs. So he didn't even know he is partaking in the Christian beast religion out of the four heads of the beast. Even Selassie claimed to be Christian. The next thing he failed to address properly is the term Faithist.
Oahspe inspired a radically different set of spiritual beliefs called Faithism. Faithism, which has a small following even today. The Faithists do not consider Oahspe the literal truth, but instead they find inspiration in its many ethical and spiritual passage. In other words, they can freestyle what it says because it's so general. You know what I'm saying? It really don't talk about H.I.M, sin, or the atonement of Yeshua HaMashiach, our black.
Being that he lacks the knowledge of Oahspe, I'm going to properly explain to you what is a Faithist. In Oahspe chapter 1, verse 19 and 20, it states, verse 19, and to as many separate themselves from the dominion of the beast, making these covenants unto me, have I given the foundation of my kingdom on earth. Verse 20, and all such shall be my chosen, by their covenants and by their works shall they be known, henceforth on earth as mine, and shall be called Faithists. So here this verse describes briefly what a Faithist is. First, by separating from the beast. As described previously, the beasts are the four major religions. So a Faithist is a person who denies following a leader or a man-savior represented by some religion. And many Rastafari fall into the same category, being that they look upon Selassie as some savior or king that's going to come back as Abba Kadosh and save them. Sounds like a Christian concept of Jesus Christ. Believing such nonsense would not make you eligible to even be a Faithist, which are the true followers of the Creator and not a man. Now the covenant to the Creator, and by their works shall they be known. So what is the covenant and what is the works of a Faithist? Now, Book of Judgment, chapter 2, verse 14, it states, Faithists, believers in the ever-present Jehovah, whom they will worship not only in words, but by abjuring self and uniting themselves in brotherhoods for sake of doing good unto others. And that is the covenant and works of a Faithist, of the Creator, to separate from the beasts, which are these false religions, to abjure self, to unite in a brotherhood and sisterhood, and to do good unto others. So again, this guy lacks the knowledge of Oahspe, trying to present critical opinions with no true background of Oahspe. Now, Rastafari is a way of life based on the teachings of Haile Selassie and other biblical philosophies, where in return Haile Selassie was a believer in Yeshua's teaching. So the root of Rastafari is the teachings of Yeshua the Nazarene and some other biblical philosophies. Now, another thing he states that is off is that Oahspe denies the existence of Yeshua, as he states.
In fact, it says that Yeshua never existed, right? Now, we know there's a Jesus, blonde hair, blue eyes, Caesar Borgias that never existed, but we bear witness to the true Adonai, Yehoshua.
Now, here I will prove otherwise. Now, in Oahspe, as I stated earlier, that Yeshua is briefly mentioned. It gives the doctrine of Yeshua as stated in the book of Esra, chapter 44, verse 1 through 14. Verse 1, God said, these are my doctrines I taught through Yeshua. So here are some of the teachings Yeshua taught coming from the Oahspe. And you tell me, is this demonic inspired? Verse 2, thou shalt keep the 10 commandments of Moses. Verse 3, thou shalt not engage in war, nor abate war. Verse 3, Thou shalt eat no flesh of any animal or fish or bird or fowl or creeping thing which Jehovah created alive. Now, I know plenty ras who eat flesh, who eat fish, who eat meat, who eat chicken. So with that principle, you are not a true ras if you eat flesh. See, you could talk about Haile Selassie all day, and you could talk about chatting Rastafari, but if you ain't living, if you still eating the flesh, you ain't no real ras. Verse 4, thou shalt dwell in families after the manner of the ancient Israelites, who held all things in common. So here Oahspe validates the culture of the ancient Israelites. Verse 6, thou shalt have no king, nor queen, nor bow down in worship to any except the Creator. Yeshua teached against kingly worship, which many Rastafari do, calling Selassie I the Almighty, a term only applied to the Creator. Many Rastafarites are doing the same thing the Christians are doing with Jesus the Christ, creating an idol of worship. Even when you listen to Bob Marley, you never hear him scream Selassie all over the records. But when you listen to these new rods, Capleton and your Sizzlers and the many others, all they do is scream Selassie I is the Almighty, Selassie I the first, Selassie this, Selassie that. This is no different than a Christian screaming Jesus every second of the day. And you trying to tell me the Rastafari culture is different? Yo, man, y'all following the same faults as the Christians following. Y'all just put a twist on it, just an updated version of the Christian philosophy. Verse 7, thou shalt not call on the name of angels to worship them, nor to counsel with them on the affairs of earth. Elohim, Elohim, all those are titles bestowed on angels. Verse 8, thou shalt love thy neighbor as thyself, and do unto thy fellow man as thou would have him do unto you. Verse 9, thou shalt return good for evil, and pity them that sin. Verse 10, it hath been said, an eye for an eye, a tooth for a tooth. But I say, return good for evil. Now, would a demonic spirit tell you that? Verse 11, and if a man smite thee on the cheek, turn the other unto him also. Verse 12, the man shall have but one wife, and the woman but one husband. Verse 13, as the children honor the father, so will the family be blessed with peace and plenty. Verse 14, remember that all things are Jehovah, and are his servants to help one another. So this is just a couple of verses of Yeshua's teachings mentioned in Oahspe. So again, how can this be a demonic spirit influenced if it is telling you the complete opposite of what demonic spirits do? Again, this guy has no knowledge of Oahspe. All he is doing is giving you his opinion based off a 20-minute study that shows poor scholarship on his end. Here again, he states that they are adding to Oahspe.
Right, where it says the Oahspe has been added to continually and updated into modern times. So who is adding to it? Right? Who is adding to this? You want to take a guess? Right? Who's adding to this, right?
Oahspe was complete in 1881. Nothing has been added since. I have several Oahspes and they are all the same. So that is another false statement. Now to shut this guy down on his own belief about Selassie I and Rastafari being a Christian-based religion, he makes reference to the Mitzvah Kudush, which is an Ethiopian version of the Bible written in Amharic. As stated in plenty of my earlier vids, that Oahspe completely exposes the origins of the Bible, being the work of fallen angels, demonic spirits. The Hebrews got their creation story from the Babylonians during their stay in captivity. Prior to the captivity, the Hebrews had 613 laws, which had nothing to do with a false 7-day creation story, nor Adam and Eve. These stories came from the Sumerian text. The 7-day creation story comes from the 7 tablets of creation. The Elohims are the Anunnakis, or sons of Anu. The Garden of Eden comes from the Sumerian word Eden, meaning abide of the righteous, and was located in the Persian Gulf, near Iraq. Adam and Eve can be traced to Enlil and his sister, Ninkursag, who created the first primitive man, Adamu, using their genes. The flood story comes from the Epic of Gilgamesh, which predates the Hebrew flood story, and the Ethiopian story of the flood found in the book of Enoch, which is the book of Enki. So this Ethiopian Amharic Bible, the Mitzvah Kudush, this guy's trying to reference is nothing more than another copy of the plagiarization stories from the Sumerian tales. And these stories were about fallen angels claiming to be the creator. So this guy doesn't even know he is carrying the demonic philosophy or philosophy of fallen angels of old. And many of you are still subservient slaves to these fallen gods, as I exposed in my Trinity series and my Judgment series documentaries. And with that, I'd like to say peace and blessings and catch you on the next rebuttal if anybody misrepresents Oahspe. Shalom.
Oh, 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 oh. hear what them a call it.